Kildimo, and at the last, Desert Orchid and Kildimo jumping together. We've got a race on here. Desert Orchid in the lead from Kildimo, and Desert Orchid goes on. Desert Orchid goes on by a length. The race is being raised here at Sandown as Desert Orchid wins the Whitbread. Desert Orchid, Kildimo stands of gold, the 1, 2, 3. Then proud
Final fence now. Panto Prince on the far side. Desert Orchid on the near side. Challenging again as they come towards the last. Panto Prince from Desert Orchid. There's very little between them now as they come to the final fence in the Victor Chandler. Panto Prince on the far side. Desert Orchid hands in the lead. Desert Orchid on the near side. Panto Prince on the far side. Here's where the 22 pounds is going to tell. Panto Prince on the far side. Desert Orchid fighting back though. Desi's fighting back like a tiger as he comes to the line. It's a photo. Desi's won it. As they come to the last. Yahoo on the far side. Desert Orchid on the near side. It's Desert Orchid on the near side. Yahoo on the far side. Desert Orchid drifting over towards the stand side. He's beginning to get up. Desert Orchid is beginning to get up as they race towards the line. There's a tremendous cheer from the crowd as Desert Orchid is going to win it. Desert Orchid has won the Gold Cup. Yahoo is second. Third is Chara Party. Desi has done it. Desert Orchid's won it from Yahoo and Chara Party.
Winning the Gold Cup was the climax of a run which had seen Desert Orchid unbeaten in 8 straight races under Simon Sherwood. But more than that, it was the climax of a career which up to now has spanned 7 seasons and has been dramatic, exhilarating, occasionally disappointing, but never boring. Following his triumph at Cheltenham and the dramatic scenes that followed, he ran at Liverpool and fell, the first time he'd fallen over fences. He'd won over distances from 2 to 3¼ miles that season and jumped over 100 fences on ground from fast to heavy. And he was ready for a long, hot summer's holiday to let the scars of battle heal. His colour, his appetite for racing, and the fact that he's been around for 7 seasons have won him enormous popular acclaim. But for a few weeks every year, he goes back to being just a horse. But as the summer wore on, we wondered how long the fairy tale could continue. My father Jimmy raised Desi from a foal and brought his grandmother for £175. And only a few miles away from the field where he spends his summer is the place where it all started. 25 years ago, all these stables here were full of grey horses. I had a wild grey pony, used to live in there. There was a grey hunter here. And in this stall was Grey Orchid, who of course was Desert Orchid's grandmother. Grey Orchid was as wild as the wind, and my father Jimmy had to get on her by the muck heap because she used to rear her backwards so often. And we certainly had no idea what it would all lead to when he sent her to the HIS stallion Brother and produced Flower Child. After winning a couple of chases, Jimmy sent her to Grey Mirage, and when he was almost 4, we sent a scraggy Anne Gelding, who we named Desert Orchid, down to David Ellsworth.
I can remember Desert Orchid reversing down the ramp because he was reluctant to come out the right way, and he was a big baby, really, a little bit on the leg, steel grey, iron grey at the time, common sort of head, good sort of young horse.
One day he said, we better give this thing a school. I'm not sure what it's like, but just hop on it up the top, which I did, as hurdles up the top of the gallops. And we went to the first hurdle, upside the couple, and boom, he'd gone. And he jumped 4 hurdles pretty swiftly and didn't look left or right. And we thought, well, this is okay, you know. But it took quite a long time to pull him up. And then we gave him one more school and took him to Kempton. David said, I would just get him round, just, you know, play it by ear, drop him in, give him a bit of a chance. He's a bit wild, which I did, and jumped out the gate, 20-odd runners. And he was a bit swift over the first few, very strong. Got to the 4th hurdle at Kempton, and I remember going to it sort of with not much room at all. Picked up outside the wings, and the horse fell in front of me, and I landed right on the jockey's head, which was Robert Strong. And I thought, all I could think about was, oh Christ, I've killed him, because I landed right on his helmet. And I thought, God, you know, he's going to be dead. And I went round the bend, and he's still pulling very hard, and I kept thinking, God, when I get back in the weighing room, I'm going to find that someone's, you know, very badly injured, if not deceased.
Is only a length or so after these with Butler's Pet and Desert Orchid,
We learned a lesson that day at Kempton that win or lose, whenever Desert Orchid ran, something dramatic always happened.
So into the straight now, just over 2 furlongs to race.
And I remember jumping the 3rd last, going really, really well, thinking, God, this old horse can, when's he going to stop? and turned in the straight, and he led at the second last and then got very tired.
Jumps up to join Boardman's Crown at that one, and these two race together for the next. Between the two is Bisako. Then on the far side of them we go back to Chasm, Queen's Home coming with a run, and then Norfolk Pageant.
Went to the last, and I tried to say to him, look, you've done it all now, but listen to me, and he didn't. And he picked up again, on his nose, rolled over, led there 20 minutes, thought he was dead. That was my first experience of him really on a racecourse.
He lay on the ground and didn't get up for 10 minutes, and we all thought he was dead.
The longer he stayed down, of course, the less likely we felt that he was winded. But he stood up and walked away as though there was absolutely nothing wrong with him after, gosh, it seemed an eternity. It must have been 10 minutes or so. It was apparent then that he was going to be a nice horse. To be perfectly honest, I didn't dream he'd scale the heights he has, but it was, you know, he was obviously going to be a winning racehorse, which is what we're all after. He ran it in Canton, where we tried to settle him, and it wasn't very successful.
Then we took him to Sandown, and we dropped him in again, and I remember he jumped very well.
Making a little ground is Desert Orchid as they race now for the final flight, and it's Diamond Hunter and Emperor Charles from Aerialist. Then making steady headway is Desert Orchid.
We witnessed the first of a series of famous Desert Orchid finishes up the Sandown Hill that day. But in this case, he came from way off the pace and wasn't yet strong enough to sustain his challenge all the way up the hill.
Challenge with Aerialist racing for the line.
Here we go. You know, he's going to win his first race. And luckily, actually, for the next season, he got beaten ahead by Diamond Hunter. He just got up and pipped him on the lines, which was a bit of a result, really, because the next season he came out and won 6.
Photograph.
I can't say it was planned, but that's the way it happened. I mean, obviously if a horse can win, you feel you've got to let him win because something will go wrong later on and maybe you'll miss your chance. But it was, I'm sure, a blessing in disguise. He didn't win that first season. It meant we had the opportunity to win a few soft hurdle races the following season, novice hurdles.
His next season marked the arrival of Rodney Bolt, who became his regular work rider.
He felt good, but they're no good while they're a tearaway. They've got to calm down, haven't they? You know, we've had good tearaways, but they're no good. They'll never win good races unless they settle.
They're off.
Rodney has educated some great horses in the past, including the Derby winner Shirley Heights, and his confidence in Des was justified by his first race of that season.
He'd really had grown up a lot, and we thought he'd act on top of the ground, so we went to the first Ascot meeting, and about 4 runners, and he hopped out the gate and accelerated from the gate, just like a racing car, like I had no control. I was in cruise control, but it was sort of jammed, and off he went. He flew the first, flew the second, flew the third, flew the fourth, up the hill, and I'm trying to give him a breather, and he didn't take one.
Running to the second from home, Desert Orchid well clear from Lucky Rascal. And there's an even bigger gap to Sammy Lux, who is third. Big Roller has made ground to go fourth, followed by Monkton Rill. This is the second from home. Desert Orchid.
In fact, just between the last two, he got a little bit tired, only because he'd overexerted himself. But I mean, he flew the last and won sort of 15 lengths or something, very easily.
Running down to the last, Desert Orchid well clear.
He was very quick. I mean, he was as quick as anything over hurdles.
He came up outside the wings and he sort of did all sorts of things that a novice first time out shouldn't really do. But no, I thought from then, we got a bit of a racehorse here.
He won the Bingley Hurdle at Ascot by 15 lengths, then over 2 3/4 miles at Sandown ran a full circuit with a loose shoe.
The conditions were worse than Wait for Age, and a horse called Catchphrase got the better of us close home, but Desert Orchid was by no means quitting, or he wasn't stopping. And the next race at Newbury, which I believe was the Challow Hurdle, Catchphrase won by almost a distance, I think 20 lengths plus anyway. And that day at Sandown, when Catchphrase had beaten Desert Orchid, they were some 20 lengths clear of anything else. So one felt that if our horse didn't stay 2 3/4 miles at that early age, well, God help those behind him, you know. And I always felt that he'd stay. I don't want to dwell on this because people have said how clever I was and all that, but I don't think it was particularly clever. I think it was fairly obvious if one thought about it. I'm not surprised he'd stay. You know, he stayed 3 miles at all.
Back to 2 miles, he won 15 lengths at Kempton, ridden by Richard Linley, and followed up with 8-length wins in the Tolworth Hurdle at Sandown and the Datchet Hurdle at Ascot. Every time he just blasted off and destroyed the opposition.
Desert Orchid, who's pulled out a bit more and opened the lead just to some 6-7 lengths now.
The ground was fast almost all that season, which seemed to suit his bold front-running style. And most people thought he would not be as effective on soft ground.
King, these two disputing fourth. So with 2 furlongs to go now and 2 more to jump. Coming up to
every time we ran him, I mean, he was keen to sort of line up and get out the gate. And every hurdle he went to, he just accelerated and accelerated and accelerated. I mean, it was like, you know, you thought, Christ, he's going to take off. But he always did. And the main thing was just set up his neck and put your finger through the breast girth and try and look pretty.
He was getting a reputation as one of the most exciting hurdlers around, and we decided to run him out of novice company for the first time in an established champion hurdle trial, the Kingwell Pattern at Wincanton.
Orchid lands just in the lead from Great Light, then comes Migrator and Admiral's Cup, and then Janus and Prido Boyne, very promising, and Stands Pride, and finally Return to Power, as they come down to what will be the last flight on the next circuit. Desert Orchid has already pulled his way clear from Great Light and Migrator, Janus Prido Boy. Coming down to the
between the last two, he just gradually wore them down and kept going, jumped the last well, won 3 lengths. And I thought, well, he's going to have a great chance in the Champions Hurdle.
Very promising, running on in 5th. But coming down now towards the final flight in the 1984 Kingwell Pattern Hurdle, and over on the far side it's Desert Orchid with the advantage from Stands Pride on the outside, and these two a long way clear from Janus and very promising.
Dare I say, had we gone to Kempton Park or Sandon or somewhere for the Champion Hurdle after the Kingwell, I'm sure he would have been much more prominent, but that was his first run at Cheltenham.
Dawn Run and Desert Orchid, very little between the two there.
I couldn't believe when I jumped the second that Dawn Run was still there, well on the bridle, sort of taking me on. I really thought that I'd sort of burn them out of the first 2 and then ride a bit of a race to sort of save a bit in front.
It was a dream for all of us to start the season with a novice and end up with the second favourite for the Champion Hurdle. But it was apparent early on he wasn't going as well as usual.
And he led, or disputed the lead, I think, and then he... on the farthest point of the course where they turn left to come down the hill, he was on the inside, and he just seemed to lose his way completely.
They begin the run downhill, Sula Beulah.
Naturally, I, like most people, thought perhaps that the task was beyond him, but this was one of the pieces of the jigsaw that we've later pieced together and realised that he wasn't nearly as effective on a left-handed track. I know people still doubt whether this theory is correct, but I assure you it is.
Racing towards the second last flight now in the Champion Hurdle, and it's the mare Dawn Run being pressed by Buckhouse all the time on the far side. Dawn Run on the near side, Buckhouse on the far side, Seamer is in 3rd place.
Well, in my heart of hearts, I was disappointed. I thought he'd be good enough to win, but then I thought early days, add a novice straight into sort of handicaps and champion hurdles, you know, it was maybe a bit too much at the time.
It's Dawn Run in the lead from Seamer and Buckhouse. Seamer producing a great challenge towards the near side, but Dawn Run with the advantage. Dawn Run lands in the lead over the last from Seamer, who's now gone a close second. And then very promising, finishing fast, and Seamer on the near side, and Dawn Run on the far side. Dawn Run from Seamer as they race into the closing stages. It's Dawn Run from Seamer, and as they come to the line, Dawn Run has won it.
That was him finished for the season, but we sent him back for the following year, full of hope that as a handicap hurdler he'd compete with the best, and set our sights on the Ladbroke Hurdle at Boxing Day at Kempton. But he got beaten into 3rd behind Rarnova in the Captain Quiz first time out. Then came down with a cough just before his next race at Sandown. And after that, we were always struggling.
I don't think one has to make excuses, but having said that, I just don't feel that he was at his very best at that particular time of his career. We went through a sticky patch that year, and whilst he ran fairly well by his own high standards, he wasn't really bouncing.
Desert Orchid on the inside of Northern Trial. See you then with the advantage at the last. See you then, and John Franken jump it. Clear of Joyride in 2nd, Desert Orchid 3rd, and racing into the closing stages. Joyride coming to put in a challenge over on the far side, but See you then holding him. And at the line, See you then is the winner, and Joyride is 2nd, and 3rd is Desert Orchid.
That run had brought him on, but it had been a rush prep for what turned out to be a very hot Ladbroke Christmas hurdle.
From Rarnova up on the outside of the first, short run Desert Orchid over safely. It's Desert Orchid the grey, Brown's Gazette in yellow, then Janus in 3rd, See You then 4.
He made the running jump superbly. turned in the straight with 3 or 4 lengths lead and finished second to Brand's Gazette. In fact, he ran a very, very good race that day. CUN was third, 10 lengths behind him. He stayed on well, he jumped well, and Brand's Gazette was one of the best about it at the time. And also CUN that won the Champion Hurdle 3 times. And he'd had the virus, as you said, and he wasn't fully wound up, and I think he just blew up a bit that day, but he ran a very good race.
This is a true championship performance by Brand's Gazette, coming home 8-10 lengths clear.
After that, Des was top weight in the Irish Sweeps hurdle at Leopardstown, and we all sailed off to Ireland with high hopes. But Des ran no sort of race and was disappointing.
He carried 12 stone, it was left-handed, and he sulked a bit away from home. I mean, it was his first time he'd ever been away overnight, so it was all a bit traumatic for him, if you like. But he wasn't beaten far.
He bounced back to win the Oatley hurdle at Sandown, but then ran even worse than the year before at Cheltenham and was pulled up. And still mystified by his inability to go left-handed, we even tried blinkers in the Welsh Champion hurdle, but he ran even worse and was pulled up again.
After pulling up in the Champion hurdle and pulling up in the Welsh Champion hurdle, actually in soft ground, again left-handed, he didn't run any sort of race really that day, very disappointing. And then we went to Ascot, sort of spring sort of meeting really, at middle of April, and he seemed very well in himself. Handicap hurdle, given Comedy Fair of quite a few pounds, and he jumped brilliantly that day, and they took him on between the last two, and coming the last he was back there again. He stood off outside the wings and just didn't get his landing gear out that day. He tipped the top of the hurdle and his neck went between his front legs and he rolled over.
When he finally got to his feet after another 10 minutes on the ground, he got a bigger chair than the winner, but he'd failed to finish his last 3 races.
It would take some believing, but it's another F, and then there's a P before that, and as you say, the form looked pretty terrible at the time.
We ran him on the flat at Ascot for a confidence booster, and then he came home. But 2 Ps and an F was not a very encouraging lead-up to a career of offences.
I thought we'd give him a run over hurdles just to get the gas out of him, if you like, because first time out he's always a bit fresh and so on. And he was, in my opinion, that day, as fresh or as well as he'd ever been. I remember putting the tack on him, it was almost dangerous, and he went off at 100 miles an hour.
These two blaze the trail, but closely accompanied by Ambrella. Mons are right up on the outside. Mons, who played up a little as he left the paddock, but right in contention, they come out towards the second flight. Desert Orchid over the lead. Winging a prayer, making little impression on this.
He came into the straight with an unassailable lead. I mean, I think I could say without fear of contradiction he would have won by a very long way.
In the lead, and he's down, he made it all wrong. That's his first mistake, and this has left the race at the mercy of Winging a Prayer. So Winging a Prayer now in the lead.
Colin Brown, who rode him, said that he didn't really think he was taking the hurdles seriously, which was probably a diplomatic thing to say when he was going to run over fences in his next race, but there you are. I mean, it was just a careless error, I think. I don't think it was any reflection on his ability to jump. He was just in too much of a hurry.
I'd scored him the previous season before he'd fallen his 2 times, and he jumped the fences at home for them in about 15 seconds. And I was very confident because he did jump. I think he wanted fences really then. You know, he just, the hurdles really got in his way. I walk around at the start, Richard Lindley said, "Whatever you do, Kai," I said, "Don't take me on." I said, "What about taking me on?" I said, "Don't take me on." I said, "You've won on this horse, you know how quick he is." He said, "Well, we're mates, we won't be doing anything stupid." I said, "Right, fine, that's okay." Eventually we jumped off, and he went 2 or 3 clear gun the first, accelerated and pinged the fence. And that was great, because that, gave us all a lot of confidence.
Desert Orchid, the very definite clear leader from Charcoal Wally, who in turn is
first stitch he stood off a mile and got there no problems, tucked all his legs up and got them on the ground pretty swiftly, and round the bend and he'd gone down the hill.
Jimmy and Proper Mommet. As they come to the 12th and final fence, Desert Orchid settled to that one, and not too good a jump from Charcoal Wally.
He jumped his fences the same as he jumped his hurdles. I mean, he didn't sort of look right or left, he never shortened.
And coming up to the line,
some doubt, how he'd adjust to fences because of his over-enthusiastic approach, I suppose.
He won as he liked. I mean, and everything else finished like trailing. I think 2 minutes later, I think the 4th horse passed the post.
He'd been popular over hurdles, but his new chasing career won him a lot more fans as he rattled off 4 straight wins over the more demanding fences of Sandown and Ascot.
Desert bowling along, really enjoying himself, this very bright young chasing prospect, running to the 7th. with the clear advantage over Rhythmic Pastimes. Then comes Evening Song and Playboy. Once again, very fast at that one, Desert Orchid. From Rhythmic Pastimes, Playboy and Evening Song as they run down towards the next, the 8th, as he runs down to this next open ditch.
He was always very good at those downhill fences, and he'd always stand off at that last ditch and then over the water, and you think, well, everything else is uphill now, so it's not too bad.
As they run to the water, number 10, Desert Orchid from Rhythmic Pastimes.
Well, he just got the third last, and he was meeting it on a good one, I thought, and he came up and just then had to sort of change his mind a bit.
Oh, he nearly went there, Desert, he very nearly went. Brilliant recovery there by Colin Brown.
But he was a little bit wrong and just stepped on it a bit, really, and just pushed his front legs through the top of the fence and landed a bit sort of awkwardly. But he soon regained his sort of balance. He's a well-balanced horse anyhow. And 2 or 3 strides, he had his ears pricked again, and off he went, and won nicely.
He'd go off in front and jump from fence to fence, and never ever thought twice, you know. Extremely brave.
In fact, David thought so much of him, he almost entered him in the King George's VI chase in his novice year.
I was tempted to enter him in that first season as a novice, but wouldn't have been a good idea because there's no substitute for experience, and it would have been premature. But one thing I insisted on was that, you know, he was allowed to run in the King George the following year. That was the one race I didn't care what else he ran in, providing we could actually run in the King George.
He then almost went back over hurdles in the Ladbroke Hurdle on Boxing Day, but we pulled him out because of the soft ground. But disaster awaited him at Ascot.
He just got a bit cocky, been around there twice, and he jumped superbly, and then he got to the ditch, and he stood off outside, I mean, well outside the wings, and he landed in the ditch, paddled through it. I was hanging in, then I was hanging out the side, rather, and I was about to go, and then I thought, no, I'm not going to get back, and then Charcoal Wally hit me up the backside and knocked me off the other side, and that was end of story. He just went off the boil of it, I think, then, and you know, ran all right, but not sort of really sparked, really.
Berlin made a mistake there.
Berlin had just won at Lingford, I believe, and Dermot Brown rode off for Nick Case in it, and he was always up his backside and always worrying him a little bit. And when we got to the bottom bend, Dermot came up beside me and he gave me very, very little room. In fact, he squeezed me right up the rails, and he had a few sort of bit of bad language flying from me.
As they turn into the home straight, and Berlin looks full of running as Desert Orchid quickly runs out of steam.
And I jumped the pond fence and rather sort of landed a bit sort of, not with his usual sort of zest, didn't get away from it very well. I landed a bit flat-footed and I jumped the second last okay, and then jumped the last. And I was accepting that I'd been beaten. In fact, halfway up the run, I put my stick up and given him a cup, and I've only got beaten half a length in the end. Probably I should have won that day. In fact, I received a pretty stiff bollocking from D. Ellsworth a couple of days later. And I think that was one race that I should have won on him and didn't, but there we are.
Staying on well, Berlin tying up in front, Desert Orchid fighting another stride up towards the line. It's a photo, it's close, Berlin from Desert Orchid.
One felt we'd lost our way with him a little bit after Christmas. He ran very well at Cheltenham. He was third in the Arkle chase, but without going back to this less effectiveness at Cheltenham, he didn't run badly, but I thought with the summer on his back, and if we started off the following season in a good vein, there was every likelihood he would, could do very well at Kempton.
He was beaten at Sandown and beaten again in a handicap at Ascot, the only time he's ever come out of the first 4 in a chase he's finished. He was a tired horse by then, and if he wasn't over the top of the season, then the connections certainly were. Desert Orchid's brother, Ragged Robin, had been killed in a steeplechase at Worcester in April.
We were thrown in the Pills race, and he won very easily. The agent he got us was a bit disappointing, but he came on for that.
And then he went back to Ascot for a 2-mile handicap.
And Brendan Powell rode Charcoal Wally, and he took me on all the way, never stopped taking me on. And we jumped very well, and his usual thing, as soon as he touched down after the third last, he's hung into the rails and off we've gone. Turned the straight and I left them standing. I've won 12 lengths. I mean, it was impressive. He was getting a bit more grown up then, and in his early days, he didn't really like horses upsizing, worrying him, and he'd have his ears back looking at them. But then, you know, he accepted that, I think he knew in his own mind that he was going to leave them turn the straight, which he did, and he won 12 lengths. That was a good win.
They've both gone past.
I remember teasing the press boys and saying it was a good trial for a King George, and they all looked at me as I was mad, because we'd established and agreed that we would run in the King George. He won very easily, and he'd been headed, and he ran on at the straight like a terrier, and it was a tremendous run. In fact, he usually takes 2 or 3 runs to get to his best, and I think he was in really good form that day, as he was at Kempton, of course, a few weeks later.
The King George, Des's first run over 3 miles, proved to be a major headache for Colin.
We had a very good horse called Coombs Ditch at the time, who'd run, I'm sure most people remember, very well in the race, and was more fancied by the public of the two. And I said to Colin, being a fair man, that he could ride whichever one he preferred, and that he could leave the decision to declaration time if he wished. So, because, you know, things change in this business. In the meantime, however, I'd contacted Simon Sherwood and offered him the other mount, whichever one Colin didn't ride.
I must confess, at the time, I was rather hoping I would be riding Coombs Ditch, as you always sort of build up these impressions of various horses when you're riding around a circuit. And all I can remember of Desert Orchid was this sort of grey horse who was obviously had great ability, but he just jumped very, very fast, and he was rather sort of grey and woolly and just went flat out, and was a bit sort of hit and miss as to whether he got round or not. But so at the time I was rather hoping that Colin would probably opt for Desert Orchid, and with a bit of luck I might be on Coombs Ditch.
I was under a certain amount of pressure from the owners of Coombs Ditch to ride theirs. The ground was very heavy on the day, and Coombs Ditch had worked exceptionally well at home. He'd been beaten ahead and beaten the neck in it the previous 2 years. So I thought, well, better be safe than sorry, but as it turned out, I'm on the wrong one. Anyhow, I was delighted that he won, and it was for everybody concerned.
Quite a long time here.
I think I was in the minority in believing that he would stay this 3-mile trip round Kempton, and I remember telling Simon to adopt the same sort of tactics as if it were, in fact, a 2-mile race. I said, you just let him bowl along, and don't worry. I think he'll stay. But obviously, if you can have a little breather at some time, fine. But I really left it to him rather.
Anyway, the best of luck to all of them, and to you. You are lucky anyway to be watching this race. Over to you, Graham Good.
For between them, they've won 111 races and over £667,000 in winning prize money, and they're on their way for the King George, the 6th-ranked chase.
He popped out, and I remember Dorlatch and Richard Rowe sort of taking me on over the first couple of fences, but Des jumped them very accurately over the first 2 or 3 fences, and fairly quickly we'd sort of asserted a sort of 5 or 6 length lead. So there was no question of a horse trying to take us on at that stage.
From Dorlatch.
Because I didn't jump the first very well, and by the time he jumped the third, I mean, he was like 10, 15 clear, jumping well, and I thought, well, I'm not going to win anything, because my horse just wasn't right. He'd had a few problems anyhow. And, I thought, well, best luck, my fault. No problem.
At the back of the field, together with Von Trapp. Those are the last 3. But it's Coombs Ditch's stable companion, Desert Orchid, who's 6 to 8 lengths clear, as they go down towards the third, the plain fence. Desert Orchid by 10 lengths to Dorlatch, by 5 lengths to Bow Ranger, by a length and a half to Boland's Cross, by 6 lengths to Wayward Lad, and then the other 4 close up behind them. Western Sunset, Forgive and Forget, jumped that one better, warming to his task. Coombs Ditch and Von Trapp the back 2. This is the second ditch that the lead comes to, and Desert Orchid jumps it well. This is the 8th. And it's Desert Orchid who leads, from Dorlatch in 2nd and Boland's Cross is 3rd and Wayward Lad 4. Western Sunset 5, and then Bow Ranger and Von Trapp and Forgive and Forget and Coombs Ditch. And this is the 9th they're coming to now. a plain fence. Desert Orchid in the lead. Desert Orchid from, in second place, Dorlatch. Desert Orchid, Dorlatch, Berlin's Cross and Wayward Lad, and Forgive and Forget didn't jump that too well, but safely enough, and so John Oaksey with the circuit to go, 10 to jump. Desert Orchid has come back to his field now.
Yes, he's a little bit closer, but that doesn't mean he's tired. His ears are pricked, he's perfectly happy, and he's jumping superbly. The favourite, Forgive and Forget, has made several mistakes.
I can remember actually going to the water jump as we went out for the last circuit. I remember there's rather being fairly conscious of the crowd alongside the water jump, which is, whenever I watch him on television now, you can always see him sort of slightly cocking his head in the direction of the crowd. And from then onwards, I was all the time thinking, must give him a breather, must give him a chance. Obviously being well aware that he'd never been over this extended trip in his life before.
On the last circuit, well, it's all still very much to play for. Look at that leap.
Second last ditch they've just taken there, and Bow Ranger is being pulled up. It's Desert Orchid in the lead from Dorlatch in second.
To watch the race unfold was as actually as I'd sort of visualised it could, and it was a tremendous thrill, personally speaking, to watch that sort of happen. I imagined that he would go off in front and people wouldn't take him too serious, and he'd have a chance, someone in the race, to sort of to have a breather, and I thought his untested stamina at that time, or as far as most people were concerned, it was untested, would be a big advantage, and he did. He went down the back, and I remember him jumping the fence on the far side, and he was flowing then, and he really streamed over that last fence, and I thought, well, nothing's going to beat this horse now.
4 lengths, Desert Orchid jumps it well. Dorlatch in second, Berlin's Cross third, Coombs Ditch now 4, Forgive and Forget with that one, and then comes Wayward Lad, and the big powerful 3 closing on, but Wayward Lad is having to be ridden to get into his position, and it's Desert Orchid who leads. Desert Orchid over in the lead from Dorlatch second and Berlin's Cross and Coombs Ditch, and then comes Forgive and Forget with plenty to do, and Wayward Lad with plenty to do. So they begin the sweep out of the back stretch, having jumped that one. Desert Orchid leads, that's the 4th from home. Desert Orchid by 8 lengths now to Dorlatch in second, Coombs Ditch is third, then comes Forgive and Forget and Berlin's Cross, and Wayward Lad with a lot to do on the extreme left of the picture gets a reminder to go about his business, and it's Desert Orchid who's still clear, but here comes Forgive and Forget, the class.
All I could think was just trying to keep him on the bridle as long as possible, not having to ask too many questions. As we came off the bend, I remember looking over my left shoulder and just seeing these yellow colours of Forgive and Forget and Mark Dwyer's fairly sort of familiar rowing action of riding, so beginning to loom up behind me. And I thought, don't ask any questions yet, just see if we can keep you on the bridle, so at least we jump the second last and then start asking questions.
It comes down towards the second last. It's Desert Orchid over safely from Forgive and Forget, the top chaser in the country, held in second place. Dorlatch is third, Berlin's Cross 4, Coombs Ditch is being pulled up, but it's his stable companion Desert Orchid who's clear as they come down towards the 19th and final fence in this King George VI ranked steeplechase. At the last, Desert Orchid jumps it well. Desert Orchid clear from Forgive and Forget and Dorlatch as they race up towards the line. It's Desert Orchid for an amazing pillar-to-post win in this top-class chase. Desert Orchid comes home well clear, and at the post, Desert Orchid is the winner. Desert Orchid well clear of Dorlatch second, close for third, Berlin's Cross just third. Forgive and Forget finishes 4, Wayward Lad a disappointing 5, and these are the only 5 to finish, because looking down the track, Coombs Ditch has pulled up, Western Sunset has pulled up, and also pulled up is Von Trapp, and there's our winner, Simon Sherwood on the chance ride. He's won at 16 to 1 on Desert Orchid.
It was the biggest win of his life, and to this day, to me, was the best. His jumping was getting better and better, and he stood off outside the wing several times, most notably the second last both times round. He'd slammed the best horses in the country at level weights over a distance he'd never tried before, and defied all the doubters who said he'd never stay, and he would never again be 16 to 1. He'd gone into the history books, and even if he'd never run again, the memory of those jumps would have lived forever.
Desert Orchid returned at 16 to 1 and is the longest price winner in 36 runnings of the King George. 16 to 1 also Royal Marshal in 76, and 106 Rose Park and Statecraft in the 50s. A tremendous result for the bookmakers, and so reminiscent of 30 years ago. When Rose Park won at 106, made all the running. They didn't believe that Rose Park would stay 3 miles. They didn't believe Desert Orchid would stay 3 miles, but both did.
If I'd ridden them at Kempton, I think they would have all been out the gate with me. And they obviously, I mean, my horse was nearly favourite, and Desert Orchid was 16 to 1 or something. I think if I'd ridden him, they would have taken me on. I'm not saying he wouldn't have won. I think he still would have won, but I don't think it would have been quite as easy, probably. Certainly when I rode him in the Gainsborough at Sandown, for 3 miles you canter down and come back past the stands. And Peter Scudamore, he was one of the main people that used to always be upsides him, in behind him, chasing him, you know, one side and the other. And he chased me down the start with Boland's Cross, and I could barely pull up actually past the first fence. I was going down towards the second fence before I could pull up, pretty exhausted. But he jumped very well that day and won nicely. I mean, you know, I rode a sort of race to let him get the trip because it's a bit stiffer, a lot stiffer track than Kempton.
One pace that they jump 3 out, and Steersby makes a mistake there, and they've got just 2 to jump now, and it's Desert Orchid, unproven at the trip on this track, in the lead and quickly goes clear. Colin Brown's used a bit of speed to get 4 lengths advantage on the others as they come down towards the second last. He jumps it well, and their Charter Party falls and hampers Berlin's Cross. Horse and jockey are okay. They've got one fence to jump, and it's Desert Orchid who's 6 lengths clear of Steersby in second place, and as they come to the last, Desert Orchid comes to it, and he pings it well. A tremendous roar from the crowd, and Desert Orchid storms up the hill. Steersby's in second place, Bernard's Cross is back in third, Catchphrase in 4, and Desert Orchid, the top weight, getting a tremendous reception. He's going to win this, and at the post, Desert Orchid, pat on the neck from Colin Brown. He's done it well. 10 clear of Steersby in second, Bernard's Cross is third, and Catchphrase finished 4. MacOliver completed to finish 5th and last. No harm to Richard Dunwoody or Charter Party, who crashed 2 from home. But the
horse they said wouldn't stay 3 miles. Well, at this stage, I wonder whether David Ellsworth will even think about running him in the Gold Cup. I hope he won't, really, and I don't think he will.
We didn't run in the Gold Cup. In fact, we didn't even enter him, running him instead in the Queen Mother Champion Chase, where he was beaten into third by Pearlyman. But from the 2-mile Champion Chase, we then set our sights on the Whitbread Gold Cup over 3 miles 5, 6 weeks later. And in between, he ran in the Peregrine Chase over 2.5 miles at Ascot, carrying 12 stone 4.
Guy Landor claiming the 4-pound allowance, and Desert Orchid with 12 stone 4.
He went through the ditch, and Guy Landor sort of took the sort of incentive to go on him, which was great. Actually, that suited us, as it turned out. But in fact, he went on Gold Bearer, and we looked well beaten. He went about 4 or 5 lengths clear. And we turned in the straight, and I got into Gold Bearer's slipstream then. It was very, very windy that day. We jumped the second last, and then I thought, right, we'll have another poke at him going the last, and I pulled onto the rail. And the wind was so strong, I felt they were doing about 3 miles an hour going the last. I never saw a stride or felt they were even going to pick up. And he got there and he muddled over it, got over it, no problem. And on the run, and he just put his ears back, and I gave him a couple of taps with my stick. Off he went, and he went and won 3 lengths. And even that second was 35 pounds, 36 pounds, good performance.
Won his 17th race, his 10th chase, second was Gold Bearer, third.
So he was headed for the Whitbread, but sadly, problems with his corns on the extremely firm ground meant that he was never running or jumping there with his usual enthusiasm.
After I jumped the second, I may as well pulled him up. I felt that he was wrong. But obviously, I mean, if I would have got hung, and I want to live a bit longer, so I thought I'd better carry on, do a circuit. And by the time I'd done another circuit, I was still sort of in the first 4 or 5, but never very happy. And I mean, I wouldn't do anything to hurt him or whatever, and I thought the best thing was to pull him up. In fact, he got a bigger cheer than the winner, Lana Rye.
He won his first Racegoers Club Racehorse of the Year award that year, which gave us as big a kick as anything. And next season he came out and won the Terry Biddlecombe Chase, then went to Kempton, where a race had been put on specially for him.
He skipped round there, no problem, jumped very, very well, and won easily, but actually hadn't done anything really. So he really did need a race before the next King George, which was Sandown.
Colin could not have realised then that he'd won his last race on Desert Orchid. He was beaten by long engagement at Sandown, then headed for the King George.
Well, King George was a nightmare again. This was my unlucky race, I suppose. 4th time I'd ridden in it.
Bow Rangers with him, and don't forget Cy Brandian can certainly force a pace too. These 3 have it as they come to the first of the 19 fences, and they're in the air together, they touch down together.
P. Scudamore and M. Pipe had obviously organised to take us on with Bow Ranger. I think we covered the first 5 furlongs quicker than they did the 2,000 guineas later on in the spring. I just kept thinking, well, Peter will take a pull, and he probably kept thinking, I'll take a pull. And I mean, I probably went too fast. It was very difficult.
Desert Orchid and Brandian now, the Bow Ranger leads.
The incredible early pace was taking its toll of the other runners.
Desert Orchid comes into it, jumps in well, Brandian third, Forgive and Forget, Napsala, and there Burnham's cross fell. This is the last ditch, and Bow Ranger just didn't meet it quite right. Desert Orchid meant the better. Brandian a crashing fall there. What reserves can Desert Orchid find? 3 out, Desert Orchid jump well. Napsala, though, has a turn of foot, and Napsala goes on.
We've turned the straight. Bow Rangers sort of starting to backpedal. I'm in front. And then all of a sudden the French horse Napsala, who was not really considered, came cruising by between the last. I couldn't believe it.
French challenger out in the lead, and now the Gold Cup challenger, Forgive and Forget, is the only challenger. Desert Orchid is beaten in third. They come to the last, Napsala on the left, and Forgive and Forget falls. Desert Orchid is left second, but this King George VI-round chase has been presented to France in the form of Napsala, who comes 15 lengths clear, and at the line, Napsala is the winner. Napsala the winner.
I rode him the next time out in the Gainsborough Chase. He finished third to Charter Party in Rhyme and Reason, and then he felt to me that he was really coming, back to his really old self as I knew him. And as it turned out, we gave Charter Party a stone and £3, and we gave Rhyme and Reason a stone and a half. And Charter Party won the Gold Cup at Cheltenham, and Rhyme and Reason won the Grand National. So in fact, that was a terrific run.
Looking back, it seems hard to believe he was then beaten at levels by Kildimo at Wincanton. But we did enter Des for the Gold Cup this year, and in fact would have run him if it hadn't rained non-stop for 2 days before. So we decided to try our luck in the champion chase again.
Of Panto Prince, who jumps it second, Weather the Storm third, very promising, and Pearly Man together, then Midnight Count on the end. As they race towards the final fence now.
I let him drift from the last bend out and over towards the stand side. And he flew the last. I remember he picked up from nowhere at the last and stayed on really well. And he ran a great race. He lost nothing in defeat. In fact, I was just, I'd already made up my mind to retire at the Cheltenham meeting. And in fact, if he'd won the Queen Mother Champion Chase, I would have packed up that day, but I finished second. So I thought I'd taken a ride in the Triumph Hurdle the next day for Brooke Saunders on Calapaez. So I thought I won't let her down. I can't let her down. I'll ride and then I'll pack up the next day. He was a great horse to ride. He was good fun, very accurate. I had a sort of got a sort of rapport with him after all. From the day one, really, I got to know him well. I loved him.
When Colin actually did come in, having ridden Calapaez and Triumph Hurdle, and he said, that's it, and pulled up, drew stumps. It was very sad because he was a great friend, and he was great. He's always, he was a tremendous ally in the changing rooms. But obviously, from a selfish angle, I was thrilled the fact that it was inevitable I might ride the grey horse.
Earlier on, but he's just demolished the rails completely.
To me, Bow Ranger was going to be the real sort of danger. It was as if some sort of something, a power above it suddenly sort of answered every single prayer possible. When I suddenly looked around and saw that Bow Ranger was actually going to be withdrawn, and that was just magic. From then onwards, I was able to just pop round on my own in front. But he was just enjoying himself, jumping a little bit right, but nothing that sort of worried me at all. And then I remember actually we jumped a water jump with the circuit still to go. And as actually we went down the back straight, I thought, I gave him a little slap and a little click down in his ear and said, right, come on, now we're business, mate. And as we went down the back straight, he suddenly started peeing his fences, as if to say, yeah, okay, we've done the poncing around the first circuit, now we're down to action. And then he flew his jumps, and then he came to the straight, and I had a quick glance to see where Kildimo was, and Kildimo wasn't going to get to me, and it wasn't until going to the last, and we flew the last, and as I landed, the saddle suddenly started to slip round, and so I had to sit pretty tight, and he won it as he liked.
And he's getting a tremendous reception from the crowd, this immensely popular grey. He's going to win left-handed for the first time in his life. He's going to win his 20th race too. Desert Orchid strides up to the line to tremendous applause.
So Desi had won for the first time in 9 times going left-handed. Personally, I always felt it was Cheltenham he didn't like rather than left-handed tracks. But one course he did like was Sandown, and the Whitbread Gold Cup was to be his last race of that season.
Already, so over to you, Graham.
Lannerai missed the break, and Strands of Gold was very slowly away. They really do have a very long way to go. 24 fences to jump, over 3.5 miles. They're at the first, and Desert Orchid...
It was an unforgettable race. A warm spring day, a big crowd, the last big steeplechase of the season, and the anxieties about his corns were soon swept away as he soared over the first 2 fences.
Here's Prick, comes to take the ditch, jumps it superbly. They're all over the second, and it's Desert Orchid in the lead. Hasn't got as near as warm today as he has in the past. This grey out in front where he likes to be, leads by a length. The run and skip of Memberson and Torside Aquilifer. Then Lanarine and Dromer and Proud Pilgrim and Golden Minstrel. Then comes Kildimo, and on the inside, Strands of Gold and GA is the back marker. With the grey, Desert Orchid blazing a trail. Desert Orchid in the lead. From run and skip in second.
In a big race like that, yes, you do try and do a little bit of homework, and you find out as to, especially in the case of Desert Orchid, as to who's going to possibly take you on, and who's going to sort of be a nuisance for a front runner. And the only one I could really see being a danger to me in hassling me during the race was possibly Run and Skip, who was a confirmed sort of front runner or a horse that needed to be near the pace. So I had a quick chat with Peter Hobbs just to find out what his tactics were before the race, and he said yes, he was going to bounce him out. So you know, I thought the only thing was to, okay, sure, bounce my fella out and just sort of assert authority straight away and just make certain that if he wanted to take us on, he was going to have to go one hell of a gallop and just sort of do a double bluff, really.
And Desert Orchid leading over safely. From in second place, Run and Skip. Behind these comes Memberson, and then Lanarine made ground to go into forward. Another superb jump by the leader. And so it's Desert Orchid in the lead, comes to take the ditch superbly. From Run and Skip in second, and he's spread eagling his field. GA is finding the pace hot. That's last.
And that was probably one of the most perfectly executed bit of riding you could wish to see. I mean, it was, they were. I don't think they missed once. When I say I missed, I mean I don't think they made an error really at jumping at all. Well, Simon has he's now retired, had a very sympathetic sort of style of riding. He was a bit too brave, really. I don't mean that, he'd sit very close to a horse and trust him completely, which if you ride for many years, you end up probably losing your faculties. But Simon was wise enough to retire before it got to him. But I think he had probably more than his share of falls because of his trust, if you like, in the sort of horses he rode. But this is just the sort of chap really that Desert Orchid wanted. He wanted somebody who would sit up quietly on him, and sit between his ears, if you like, and have complete trust in him. And whether he did or he didn't, he convinced Desert Orchid that he did anyway, and it was a very good partnership.
As they come down towards the 11th, and Desert Orchid jumping boldly in the lead. Proud Pilgrim, another little bit of a niggly mistake there. So they've completed a circuit in this 32nd running of the Whitbread Gold Cup. And it's the grey, Desert Orchid out in front. Run and Skip on the left of the picture in the yellow jacket, Memberson in the beige behind them as they take the 11th. Crowd really relishing this as they come down towards the 12th. This is an open ditch, and it's Desert Orchid in the lead by a length. The Memberson, Run and Skip on the inside. Let's see how he jumps this. Oh, quite superbly, the horse in front, Desert Orchid. And the knowledgeable crowd here really relishing this sight. And the order as they pass us, having jumped 13, is that Desert Orchid leads by a length. The Run and Skip, Torside makes ground on the inner. Lanarine close up, Memberson line across the track, Golden Minstrel. Only 2 lengths off the lead, then Androma and Kildimo. And then Strands of Gold, Aquilifer on the inside, and Proud Pilgrim. And GA is the back marker. So they head towards the 14th fence, and it's Desert Orchid in the lead. They swing right-handed, and Desert Orchid running a bit wide there and giving a bit of ground away, but still on the wide outside. Now shares the lead with Run and Skip. Desert Orchid from Run and Skip, who's come through on the inside. Behind these, Lanarine racing third. In fourth is Torside. Fifth is Memberson. And then making ground on the outside all the time is Golden Minstrel as they take the next fence, and there Desert Orchid led. Another mistake at the rear of the field by Proud Pilgrim Aquilifer. The 11-2 favourite, not in the picture at the moment. Desert Orchid at 6-1. He's been in the picture throughout. It's been impossible to keep him out of it. And it's Run and Skip on the inside of Desert Orchid as they go down towards the 15th. It's Run and Skip and Desert Orchid racing wide. Desert Orchid in the lead from Run and Skip. Golden Minstrel, a slight mistake. Aquilifer has got a lot to do. That's second from last at the moment as they take the 16th, and Desert Orchid, a superb jump there. He's jumping them into the ground.
Well, he's got to get a little bit further in front than that, John.
Yes, I think Simon's had things played his own way a little bit. Nobody's really been too keen to take him on, and the old horse has been lobbing along with his ears pricked. And as you said, he stood off a whole stride too soon, the first one in the straight there, and got easily as far the other side. But if his main problem was whether he was going to get the trip, and things have been going his way, he ought to get it.
It's very different this year. This is where he packed up last year.
It's 6 to jump, and Lanarai looks the one who's going to be packing up. That one's last.
He jumped his fences so accurately the whole way, and I remember John Franklin saying the horse is just jumping out of his stride, which he was. We just seemed to be meeting every single fence absolutely spot on. And we had a nice little breather having jumped the railway fences for last time. Run and Skip came past us, just tucked in behind him for a second, which didn't worry me at all at the time. And it wasn't until we came out off the bend and I just pulled outside Run and Skip, and I suddenly just grabbed hold of his bridle a little bit tight, and I suddenly realised, yes, there was a fair bit of horse still left underneath me.
Some behind these, and then behind these comes Androma. Strands of Gold is not out of it. The race opens up as they come down towards the 22nd, and it's the grey Desert Orchid now, who may have been given a breather by Simon Sherwood, comes to take the third from home, and it's Desert Orchid who leads there from in second.
He flew the pond fence, came to the second last, and then I remember just half seeing Kildimo coming there, jumped second last well, and then I remember seeing Kildimo looming up beside me, and then I remember just going to last and thinking, we just got to get this right, and I realised there was a fair bit of horse still underneath me. Going to last just slightly wrong, and so we had to I just let him run across it, and then on the run in, he was always going to be Kildimo.
Kildimo and Desert Orchid goes on. Desert Orchid goes on by a length. The race is being raised here at Sandown as Desert Orchid wins the Whitbread. Desert Orchid, Kildimo, Strands of Gold, the 1, 2, 3. Then Proud Pilgrim and Run and Skip and Androma. A member's head of Torside behind these Golden Minstrel, and the favourite was Aquilifer, beat only one. That was GA. I have never, ever heard the crowd warm to a horse like they warmed the Desert Orchid. This was a spectacular performance, a superb jumping exhibition by the most popular horse in training. That's number 2, Desert Orchid, owned by Mr. Richard Burridge, trained at Whitbread by David Ellsworth, the 6-1 front-running winner of the 32nd running of the Whitbread Gold Cup, ridden superbly by Simon Sherwood.
What a horse this is. They said last year he wouldn't stay 3 miles. This year a lot of people thought he wouldn't stay 3 miles, 5 furlongs. But beautifully ridden by Simon Sherwood, he showed them. Let's hear the welcome.
The reception was unbelievable. Just going into the winnings enclosure and seeing people's hats flying up in the air, and when we went back into the changing rooms, and the flat jockeys just could not believe that such a reception was possible for a racehorse. And I don't think I'd ever seen such a reaction from a crowd.
Happy scenes. Desert Orchid and Janice Coyle at his head.
It was the end of the first season that I looked after him. The applause from the crowd when he came back after winning the race was just something that I've never felt before.
I've been with a lot of good horses, but the reception that Desi gets, you know, you don't see it, very rarely you ever see it. I'm saying, do you ever hear any horse getting 3 cheers, for instance? You know, I've never heard it before, not in my lifetime of racing anyway.
The day that Desert Orchid won the Whitbread.
There's a lot of thanks to everybody in the blacksmith and my vet who's been working on his corns, you know, and tremendous climate.
The Whitbread was an incredible race. Several people I talked to afterwards said it was just about the perfect horse race, and I certainly wouldn't argue with them at all. I must have watched it 200 times during the course of the summer, and I never ever tired of that incredible finish. But as the summer wore on, I came to see Desi occasionally in the field, and I began to wonder whether he would still be able to achieve the same kind of success the next season.
The 88-89 season was remarkable. I mean, I don't think that's too strong a word even by Desert Orchid standards. He wasn't beaten up to Cheltenham.
Wincanton it was just a question of popping out, giving the horse a nice blow, and I think the old grey horse actually was more concerned about all the crowd on either side. And I can actually visibly remember seeing people clapping us as we were jumping over the last couple of fences. And and he pinged the last, and he loves that old track, and he just had a nice little sort of canter around and won by 15-20 lengths as he liked.
He then went back over 2 miles, and the same people who predicted he'd never stay 3, then 3 miles 5, now said he was too slow to win over 2.
Simon, what's going on here?
I very much felt at the time that he was gearing himself much more to being a 3-miler, and that if ever he was going to be vulnerable, it was going to be over 2 miles. And obviously against the likes of Panto Prince and Jim Thorpe, sort of hardened professional 2-milers, his sort of vulnerability might be just shown up.
The second last and jumped it brilliantly. Jim Thorpe through the top of it, Panto Prince in second place. They race down towards the 13th and final fence.
There's no better preparation for King George and Desert Orchid than that go around Sandon. It's over 2 miles. I think it's an ideal prep race for him. Usually wins.
Clear, making specialist 2-mile chasers look very one-paced, but amazing performances. Desert Orchid, 12 stone, 12 lengths clear, up towards the line. Desert Orchid, 23rd race, and they'll never be easier. Close to the last on the far side, and Desert Orchid has it.
Prior to the race, I actually felt that we were totally invincible, especially right-handed round Kempton. I couldn't see any horse getting within stones of him. We were obviously on an incredible high at the time, and I think the old grey horse sort of was on a high. During the race itself, it was Volcatini, as it happened, was the one who was hassling us most of the time, and he was actually being much far quicker away from his fences than I was. And it wasn't till we actually came into the straight and had 3 to jump, and going to the third last, Volcatini and Kildime actually came and jumped up beside us on the outside, and were going as well, if not better than us. And it was then that I suddenly thought, right, now, come on, mate, this is the time to actually race instead of sort of mucking around. And then going to second last, and if any of the 3 of us had actually hit this fence, I think we would probably still be dug out at the moment. But luckily he flew it, and then that was race, signed and sealed over. We almost hurdled the last. He was going so fast, and he just canted home, and he did nothing more than the little piece of work he would have done at home. He was very impressive that day.
Simon Sherwood and Brendan Powell almost matching strides, these two now.
It was arguably the most awkward ride I'd ever had on Des, in the fact that Brendan Powell obviously had a particular mission just to hassle us right from the start, and I'd never actually ridden him in a race where I was actually hassled by another horse, and quite rightly Brendan took us on right from the start. And then as we went down the hill, he was jumping well, but he was jumping rather stupidly well. He was jumping too far away and taking off his fences too far, and he actually wasn't doing himself any favours. And I remember hearing a crunch from behind as Volcatini actually, I think, tried to take off almost the same time as we did, and he ended up going straight through the fence. Des took off far too far away and very nearly actually came down. He very cleverly managed to find the 5th leg and just picked himself up.
With the advantage, racing to the home turn now.
The 3 of us were all up sides. And I remember just sort of trying to pull Des out as far away from Panto Prince as possible, just give him a bit of heart to make him feel as though he isn't being sort of out-jumped or out-gunned by a horse in front. And then as we came up the hill, going second last, we jumped it well, but the other horse was getting away from his fences much quicker. And although we got upside him going to the fence, the other one was getting a couple of lengths getting away from the fence. And again, going to last, we met it just about spot on, and it looked as though we might just get back. Then again, Panto got a length away as we getting away from the fence. And so there was a real battle on. And yes, and then it was the first time in my life I actually had to sort of resort to the kosher, which is probably overexcitement on my behalf, and probably it wasn't necessary. But as it happened, we literally just got there on a nod, and I think Des sort of knew straight away, because as soon as we got there and I put my hands down, his ears pricked up, and he obviously realised, that was another scalp.
I think he's just got the determination to win. He just wants to win. He does. It's like athletes. If you don't have the will to win, then you don't win.
When one's hassling the old grey horse, his ears rather go back as if saying, yes, sure, Simon, I'm doing my best, but no need to keep on sort of badgering me. And then as soon as you'd won it and you accepted it, then his ears come up, and I think he probably hears a sort of reaction from the crowd.
Ball gains Chase. They've got 3 to jump.
Against Pegwell Bay, and to me it was one of Des's sort of best performances and the most complete performance in the fact that he jumped fantastically. Pegwell Bay took it up with the circuit to go, but to me he was going too fast. And then we picked him up going to the pond fence, and to me he won incredibly easily. He won 3/4 of a length, but I think if a winning post had been another couple of hundred yards, he'd have probably won 3 or 4 lengths. He was at the weights to beat a Maxon horse that well. To me, it was a fantastic performance, and he gave me. It was a race that probably gave me the most enjoyment of all the rides I actually had on it.
And it's Desert Orchid and Pegwell Bay, and Desert Orchid takes it. Desert Orchid from Pegwell Bay on the far side. Kildimo back in third, but Pegwell Bay is sticking to his guns. Will the Orchid bloom? It's Desert Orchid finishing fast, and Desert Orchid blooms. Desert Orchid wins. Desert Orchid from Pegwell Bay and Kildimo. This is what the crowd wanted. Charter Party was back in full.
Well, I never really thought that he would win a Gold Cup in the early days because of this Cheltenham hoodoo or left-handed inhibition he had. However, as the race got near and because of his apparent superiority over the opposition, I felt if ever he was going to win a Gold Cup, it was this year, '89.
Winning the Gold Cup last season has been the highlight of David's career. The manner in which it was done, the drama surrounding it all. I mean, you really couldn't have written a fiction story better.
Winner of this very race 12 months
I was
ago,
disappointed, like everybody, with the weather. I mean, it poured down, of course, and going was atrocious. But I didn't really subscribe, and never have done, to the theory that it was going to be more of a problem for Desert Orchid, because he is the best balanced horse one ever could ride, and he jumps so well, and he moves beautifully. He would be less likely to be at a disadvantage than most of his other horses. It was certainly unpleasant, but it was only wet, it was muddy, and it was unpleasant, but it wasn't dangerous.
No grey has ever won this race, you know. That's a bad statistic to try and get over, isn't it? And it's certainly a bad race for favourites. Only 3 in the last 18 years have won: Dawn Run, Bragorn and Alverton. Desi just standing and pondering for a minute.
Prior to the race, the pressure was pretty great. He was sort of basically a nailed on certainty, and everything had to go right on the day. And if anything went wrong, it was just going to be my own fault. And when the conditions turned out what they did turn out on the day, it slightly took the pressure off us, because I knew at the back of my mind that if he hated it, I was prepared to put him up within 2 or 3 fences. And the conditions were so diabolical that it was sort of, you could almost sort of cry situation. But as it happened, the ground was so wet, it was almost sort of, it was better than what it'd been if it'd been raining the day before and possibly dried up overnight.
He doesn't think he'll be too inconvenienced. They're trotting up. I think Michael Sayers must be up on his rostrum, because they're all getting to the business end here. 11 to 4 Desert Orchid, Carville's Hill 5s, 10 plus 5s, 7 to 1 bar, and here we have Peter O'Sullivan.
The 13 runners under starters orders. Captain Michael Sayers about to start his last Gold Cup.
Wait.
Ask the jockeys to wait.
No.
Oh, John, sorry, mate. He's a spooky bugger, this one.
I'm waiting for Cavi's plan to take a turn. Get straight, the rest of you. Lead him in at the back. Come on.
Run away.
Go on.
And to a great roar from the crowd, they race to the first of the 22 fences. Bonanza Boy over on the far side, Desert Orchid in the center of the fence, Charter Party and Slalom between horses. Gavi's Clown jumps it last, and Desert Orchid has gone to the front as they race to the second. Desert Orchid from 10 plus towards the near side. Charter Party and Slalom and Yahoo and Bonanza Boy, and behind them come Pegwell Bay, and behind Pegwell.
During the race, once it started, all I could think was pop him out, get him in a sort of dominant position. We flew over the first 2. He actually sort of snatched at the second fence a little bit. And from then onwards, for the first circuit, we were just able to lob along in front and just try and keep the old horse happy, which we were able to do.
With just behind them, Slalom, Bonanza Boy and Yahoo. then Pegwell Boy on the far side. Here's West Tip, then the Thinker, Ballyhane, Golden Freeze, Carville's Hill over the third, and Cabby's Clown. They race now down towards the water. Desert Orchid from Charter Party and 10 Plus, Yahoo on the far side, Pegwell Bay on the near side. Slalom was between horses, all safely over the water and racing now to the first of the ditches with Desert Orchid on the inside of Charter Party as they jump it. 10 Plus right up with them. Another plain one before the second ditch. Desert Orchid at the sixth from Charter Party and 10 Plus, Pegwell Bay and Yahoo. And it looks as though Golden Freeze has gone at that one. Golden Freeze has gone at that. 12 left. The next ditch, Desert Orchid lands from Charter Party and Pegwell Bay. And Carville's Hill's gone there. The Hope of Ireland has gone at the second ditch. This is the eighth. Desert Orchid lands in the lead from Charter Party and Pegwell Bay. 10 Plus on the outside. As they run downhill, Yahoo comes next, then Slalom, then Bonanza Boy. The two loose horses seem to be all right, Carville's Hill and Golden Freeze. Over the ninth, Desert Orchid lands in the lead from Charter Party and Pegwell Bay. 10 Plus. Then on the outside, Yahoo. West Tip's not far behind the lead. Nor's the Thinker. Bonanza Boy on the inside. This is the 10th. Desert Orchid lands in the lead. 10 Plus, Charter Party, Pegwell Bay, Yahoo. And the Thinker's gone at that one. The Thinker has gone. Horse and jockey up all right. So 10 left now in the 1989 Gold Cup as they run down towards the fence. It'll be the second last on the next circuit. Number 11 this time of the 22 fences, and it's Desert Orchid from 10 Plus and Charter Party and Pegwell Bay and Yahoo and Slalom and Bonanza Boy, and behind them Ballyhane, West Tip and Cabby's Clown getting closer to the front all the time. Desert Orchid on the far side, in the center of the fence, 10 Plus. On the near side, Cabby's Clown, then Yahoo, then Charter Party and Pegwell Bay. Mistake there by Bonanza Boy. Desert Orchid on the inside of Cabby's Clown and 10 Plus. These three almost matching strides. 10 Plus taking a fractional advantage now from Desert Orchid. Cabby's Clown on the inside. Charter Party 4-5 Yahoo, 6 Slalom, 7 and 8 are Pegwell Bay and West Tip. 9 is Bonanza Boy and 10 Ballyhane as they run downhill now with 10 left to jump. 10 Plus just in the lead now from Desert Orchid on the inside. Over this one. Desert Orchid again on the inside of 10 Plus.
It wasn't until we actually went out for the second circuit that 10 Plus and Cabby's Clown came on our outside. And then I felt that we were going fast enough without, I don't want to hassle him at this stage. I remember just shouting to Kevin Mooney saying, for God's sake, give me room, which Kevin very kindly did, which enabled us to sort of hold that inside position. And it wasn't until we actually went down to the open ditches down the back straight that Charter Party and 10 Plus started to quicken it up, and I then had to actually ask him to sort of quicken up, and it was important and vital that he actually got some good jumps, which luckily we did at both the ditches, and were able to hold our position.
Now racing to the final ditch. 6 from home and 10 Plus has taken a 3-length advantage from Desert Orchid. Charter Party, the former winner, is 3rd. Yahoo is 4. Cabby's Clown 5. Pegwell Bay 6. Beautiful jump by Desert Orchid, takes him within a length of 10 Plus. In 3rd, Charter Party. Slalom was a faller there. Yahoo is 4th. Ballyhane is back in 5th now, 5 from home. 10 Plus landed in the lead from Desert Orchid 2nd, Charter Party 3rd, Yahoo 4, Ballyhane 5, Cabby's Clown 6, running downhill now.
Coming down the hill, again, I was quite happy where we were. I know 10 Plus had kicked on, but I very much felt like Kevin was throwing all the coal on what he could at the time. And we actually hit the fourth last quite hard. Going down to the third last, it was 10 plus actually went down. I was actually only about half a length behind him, and I was actually just coming back on the bridle, so I was, I'm not going to be brought into an argument over it, but I felt I was going as happily as I could possibly expect at that stage in the race. But it wasn't until he jumped it, and I suddenly came out and I wasn't really going anywhere. And it was then that Tom Morgan and Yahoo loomed up my inside, and unfortunately I hadn't got enough horse underneath me to prevent Tom from coming up my inside. As it happened, it was probably a blessing in disguise because Tom had to go for the gap, and as a result Yahoo was arguably in front too long.
Yahoo on the far side, he's gone on now from Desert Orchid towards the near side. Yahoo from Desert Orchid, and Desert Orchid looks as though he's tiring in the ground. Yahoo, who loves the mud, is full of running at the second last. Yahoo jumps from Desert Orchid, but Desert Orchid is...
It wasn't until about sort of 100 yards from the last fence that he suddenly changed his legs, and he suddenly seemed to get a little bit of motivation, and he sort of, from 2 lengths down, we were about half a length down, and from then on it was really up to Desert, who really showed the real guts, and 3/4 throughout the run-in, we got up sides Yahoo, and he was saying, Yahoo, you look as though you're going to beat me, get out, and I'm coming over to push you out the rails, I think.
Desert Orchid is going to win it! Desert Orchid has won the Gold Cup! Yahoo is second! Third is Chowder Party! Simon Sherwood punches the Earl! Desi has done it! Desert Orchid's won it from Yahoo and Chowder Party!
Desi's never been a quitter. I mean, I've seen him struggle on from the first day when Catchphrase beat him in that hurdle race we were talking about earlier. I mean, he's never been a quitter. No, the horse has got tremendous fighting qualities. He battles very, very well. I'm not just saying that now because it's obvious, but it's always been a part of his makeup. He's a very tenacious and dour horse. He's tough.
From Tom Morgan.
He pricked his ears, and it showed he definitely was aware of the crowd. And as we walked down the catwalk back to the Winnings enclosure, he never sort of had any nasty thought in his head. And I can remember actually coming into the Winnings enclosure, and there was a sort of surge of people ran towards him, of pressmen and various other people. And I thought, well, if there's a time he's going to really freak out, this would be the time. And he didn't even stop in his stride, he just pricked his ears, he looked at them, and he just carried on walking. And so the whole sort of episode was totally for his own benefit, and he just loved every minute of it.
The Grand National just incompetent. Well, Desert Orchid's getting a fair massaging from his supporters. Wonderful moment this for Rodney Bolt, who rides him out every day, and for Janice Coyle, his faithful lad. 3 cheers you probably picked up there. Another circuit, the final circuit. And Desert Orchid leads.
It was a real anticlimax to the Liverpool thing. All I can say from myself, from a selfish angle, I just felt that, I was glad that he went down and got aware of it, because at least in my heart of hearts I felt as though we'd never been beaten together. At the time, I think it was on the cards, and to me he felt a very tired horse that day. He definitely wasn't very happy going left-handed, and I could sense that Yahoo was always going to have that bit of turn of foot at the end. And that wasn't Desi at all. He was, obviously the Cheltenham run had just sort of paid its toll, and he was ready to go out to grass and sort of rest on his laurels for the year.
It was the end of a great partnership. 2 months later, that muddy day at Liverpool was just a distant memory as Desi loafed away his summer in a field, staying out day and night, rain and shine, just a horse at peace with the world. I dropped by to see him from time to time, usually in a rush to get somewhere else, and envied him. It had been an incredible season, and as the long summer days passed, we had time to reflect on whether he could ever emulate it, and whether he would retain his enthusiasm for the battles to come in the following year.
Oh, okay.
Desi's holiday is over, and it's time to start his road work again. After Cheltenham, he attracted so many admirers that my stepmother Midge had to start a fan club. This is the day when they come to see their hero, and Des, of course, enjoys every moment.
I can see when he's got a sort of look of Arthur when he walks into the paddock and he looks around, his head's in the air and he says, come on, you've all got to have a look at me. I think he has just got that charisma. He's an actor.
He is so very loved by everybody.
Des readily accepts his star status and loves having his picture taken. The click of a camera shutter is music to his ears, and there was even the suggestion he was in so many close finishes last season because he enjoyed having his picture taken by the photo finish camera.
Well, horses, to me, and my wife, is what life's all about. Especially a horse like Desert Orchid. I mean, he's the best since Arkle. And that says everything, I think. It's just fantastic.
Do you recognise him here from on the race course?
Very much so. You recognise him anywhere, you know, the head and the eye.
What's the thing you like about him most?
The courage, I think. The courage of the horse. Outstanding. Outstanding.
But the fact that he's changed my life is unquestionable.
When I first met Jimmy, and he said he owned 2 racehorses, in fact they were 2 not particularly good point-to-pointers, I was so excited to have actually met someone who owned 2 racehorses. I couldn't believe it. The fact that one had never won a point-to-point and the other had only won 2 is irrelevant.
Des's dam, Flower Child, was a really brilliant jumper, but she wasn't considered very fashionable.
When I said that I was going to breed from her, to the local person who knew most of all about breeding, he said that if I was interested in breeding, the best thing I should do about Flower Child was to shoot her and start again. So that wasn't very encouraging, but I was sufficiently fond of the horse to disregard that particular bit of advice.
Before Des goes out on the roads, he has a spell on the horse walker to build up his leg muscles with no weight on his back. And here at least he goes left-handed as much as right-handed, although he clearly regards the process as rather undignified.
I think Jimmy always had this feeling that anything he bred would be amazing. But I never since had that confidence. We'd had so many bad horses, I couldn't actually believe we'd have a good one.
When I actually had bred a horse which won the King George VI, I thought I was God.
What about the Gold Cup?
The Gold Cup, I was too shattered, too much of a wreck to take in at all.
The lanes around Jimmy's house get choked with traffic, so in August he comes up to my house on the North Yorkshire moors to continue his road work. We start with a 3 or 4 mile ride and work up to about 9 or 10 miles. Des tackles it all with his usual enthusiasm, but it's mostly walking, and we build him up gradually so there's no strain. We stay up late at night watching old videos of his races and trying to reconcile the media figure he's become with a silly old fool mooching about on the moors. But there is an undeniable pleasure having him here and in playing a part in this story. I resist the temptation to ride him myself because I'm supposed to be too heavy, but the mixture of the dales and the heather and walking across the middle of the moors with 4 thoroughbreds, one of whom just happens to be Desert Orchid, is pretty special. At the height of an English summer, the Gold Cup seems a long way away.
It's been a marvellous summer. You know, it's an old-fashioned summer. This is what they used to be like, though, when we were kids. All summers were like this, you know. You could guarantee it. Ah, good.
You could also guarantee that Des will be visited by a stream of admirers.
Horse plays a big part in your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He really does. I mean, you are a wicked boy. Oh, look what you're doing. You're eating my cardigan. Yes. I've never been so thrilled about anything. I never thought it was so wonderful to have a cardigan eaten up.
In late August, we were hit by a local outbreak of equine flu, and Des coughed for a few days. And though he was never sick, we waited for him to recover, then on David Ellsworth's advice got Edmund Collins, the local vet, to come and give him a booster injection. Then before Des went back, I asked George Armitage to come and check out his back, as a horse jumping over 100 fences every season at high speed, carrying 12 stone, is bound to have the occasional problem. But happily, everything was all right this time.
Is he all right?
It's all right.
We had done everything we could, and the strange burden of looking after this living legend now passed to David and his staff. David has had Des since he was a 3-year-old and knows him inside out, but even he had a little difficulty in getting him into the horse box.
Come on, don't knock about this. Turn him round. Turn him round.
Perhaps I was imagining it, but Des seemed reluctant to go. You couldn't help wondering what lay ahead. Had the Gold Cup taken its toll? Would he still be as enthusiastic as ever?
I'm going to kick the shit out of him. Yeah, it's running down there.
Otherwise he's going to start batting about.
Okay.
The fog rolled in as Des set off for the 7-hour journey to Hampshire. And that was the last I was to see of him for some time. But Des has become so ridiculously famous these days that he doesn't even have to be there to have an effect on you.
We've had a lot of people from up north and everywhere come down. They've just drove down to see him. Especially we got a lot of holiday makers in the New Forest now. They've even been coming all summer, and of course he's not here.
They're pretty disappointed when it's not here.
And you can't sort of show them anything else.
It was some of the best news I ever had when I think it was your suggestion that a fan club was going to be set up and that I wasn't going to have to administer it. That was a worry for a while.
I'm glad I trained him, not somebody else, because I've often said I'd be fed up with hearing his name if I didn't.
As soon as he came out of the horse box, he said, "Oh God, I'm at that place again."
Steady now, you should be trotting! He's probably the easiest horse in the yard to train and look after because he's been exceptionally enthusiastic, hard-working, all the sort of things, all the virtues you look for in people, and as he's got them all, he tries very hard. Great competitor. King George is the race for him in the first half of the season, and we'd like to win a race or two on the way, but that's what we're geared to.
Rodney Bolt has ridden him for 6 years, and in the process turned Des from a tearaway into a professional racehorse. But Rodney isn't allowed to go racing, because every time he's been to the racecourse, Desi's been beaten.
I'm not going to go and watch Desi run again, because I haven't brought in any luck, have I?
You're not going to sneak in to watch him race again,
I didn't last year, did I?
We don't know.
Were you at Liverpool?
Were you at Liverpool? It comes from Liverpool.
Yes. You weren't at Liverpool then, Rodney?
No.
You didn't sneak home for the weekend, did you?
He was so wonderful last year that one has to think probably that was his, that was his best. Captain Ryan Price often said any fool can get to the top. It's very difficult to stay there, and that applies to most sports. You can suddenly be regarded as the best or the champion or whatever you are at the moment, and then somebody's always there ready to knock you off your perch.
Can you imagine what life would be like when he retires?
It'll be all an anticlimax, really, I think.
Do you think he's got any intention of retiring?
He'll have to retire one day, can't go on forever.
Do you think it's occurred to him yet? It's occurred to lots of other people.
He's done so much and he's done so well that anything else is a bonus to us now. And if he does go on and win more races, then, very fortunate.
I feel I'm still very much involved. I mean, I see and speak to you a lot, and David, and everybody involved with him, and Simon up until he retired just recently. No, we're all very much involved. It's a great part of my life.
He's given me much more confidence as an individual, because I suppose in ways you gain inside identity through him almost sudden. But he has, he's basically given me all the fun that I've had in racing, 99 of it is down to him in the last sort of year or so.
Meanwhile, Des was having his first gallop of the season. Basically, Rodney knows how to ride this horse better than anyone else and has a complete understanding with him. But you can guarantee Des will not be looking this relaxed when he first jumps a fence. And Richard Dunwoody, his new jockey, was the lucky man who'd landed the job of schooling him. I asked his two previous jockeys whether they'd be giving him any advice on how to ride him.
Yeah, what we're going to do, we're going to let him know anything, or what are you going to do?
Well, I'm certainly not going to give him any advice.
No, there you go.
I seem to remember we beat Charter Party, which he was riding all last season anyhow, and so hopefully he's experienced a bit just by watching us from behind.
Richard Dunwoody had won a Grand National on West Tip and a Gold Cup on Charter Party, so he was hardly a stranger to the big occasion. But those days of high drama would seem to pale into insignificance compared with the hair-raising annual event of Desi's first practice over fences.
But what was it like the first time you saw a fence at Whitbread?
Very exciting, actually. Even David's son Simon got up that morning to come and watch. You know, if there's something dangerous going on, everybody's up there wanting to watch. And Des was quite revved up by that time because it was the end of his end of the season. He'd just fallen over hurdles at Ascot, and we thought we could win one pot before the next season that he was going novice chasing. And as I said, he went up over those fences. I think it took 12 seconds to jump 4, and then big circle at the top trying to pull him up. I think I walked him home.
Simon's only school on Des was equally unorthodox.
David said, right, there'll be a horse galloping on the flat alongside you, not actually jumping the fences. I thought this is a slightly novel sort of form of schooling. I thought, you know, every trainer has their quirks, and David obviously has more quirks than most. So off I set, and by the time I jumped the 5th fence, this horse which was galloping on a flat alongside me, which was actually a flat horse, I think I was about 20, 30 yards in front of him. So I pulled up to let the other one come and pick me up. And that was a brand new time.
That was Indian Ridge you were schooling with?
Oh, was it? The one which won an Ascot, that one.
Every time Des sees a fence, it's like an explosion has gone off in his head.
So we probably went a bit quick, got a bit excited as we went down past the hurdles and showed them the fence. But, we've gone up there, we nearly jumped the path with the all-weather at the end. But it's all power, you know. It's given me a great feel.
Well, you followed him a few times and you've beaten him a few times. So what's it like to actually sit on top of him? Is it any different?
No, I think he's given me a lovely feel, and you know, it's smashing to be on him.
His first race of the new season was the Silver Buck Chase at Wincanton.
And Desert Orchid by a couple of lengths on the outside as it comes to it now, and once again a mighty leap at it. 3 plain ones in front of the stands remaining in this Silver Buck steeplechase over 3 miles at 1 furlong. They straighten up for home now. The grey, he's 3 lengths in front, Desert Orchid. He's 4 lengths in front, increasing his advantage now as he comes towards the last fence. He draws to it now. Richard Dunwoody takes off, and a great leap at it, and it's great to have him back. Desert Orchid, he's on the winning list again as he strides up to the line to win his 28th win of his career. It's Desert Orchid striding away.
Desi had won his comeback race in style, but after he was beaten by Long Engagement at Sandown, people started to say he was on the decline.
And it's inevitable that when a horse is as good as Desert Orchid, people all wish to be the first to identify his decline. And I think that some of the press may have felt that that was the beginning.
So the doubters were out again in force as Des tried for his 3rd King George.
Barnbrook again is trying to close, but his query is the trip here. Yahoo in the yellow colours on the right, and they're in line for home, and they've got 3 to jump. And it's Desert Orchid who comes down towards this, the third last, comes to it, a good jump from Bob Tisdale and Barnwood again. And Norton's Coin and Yahoo looking one pace now as they come down towards the second last. And Desert Orchid comes to it, and he meets it well. 3 clear of Barnwood again and Bob Tisdale. And he's got one to jump as Desert Orchid in this King George VI and ranked steeplechase. One more to jump for Desert Orchid, and the crowd is starting to come alight. But Barnbrook again is challenging in second. They're at the last, and Desert Orchid takes it from Barnbrook again in second place. And as he races up towards the line, it's Racing's own Rolls Royce. Desert Orchid, the silver shadow going well clear of Barnbrook again, and Desert Orchid wins it for a third time. A big performance.
Like Simon before him, Richard Dunwoody dealt with all the pressures of riding Des and rode a wonderful race. It was his first King George and Des's third, and perhaps they'll both be back again next year. It is just possible there are a few chapters in the Desert Orchid story still to be written.